Y'all can talk.
Okay, so we are live. This is Listen to the Stars. I'm in Arizona. You have to stop playing the noise. Okay, so I am live in Arizona for the Vedic Astrology Conference. I'm actually not at the conference. I'm at Ernst Wilhelm's, and I'm here with a bunch of... Stop playing the noise. You have to do this. Sorry. I'm here with a bunch of astrologers, and we are going to be doing a live Q&A, so... I'm just going to reorient the laptop and show you everyone that's here and introduce everyone that's here. So we'll do that in 1 second. I just need to give the, let's see here. Do you have the questions pulled up?
I have no idea where I'm supposed to go.
Okay, so 1 second here. Is it showing up live? I don't know. Okay, 1 second. It is live. All right.
Yeah, she's over there. Yeah.
So one person is watching so far, but it's working for you? Okay, good.
Maybe she could read the questions.
All right, so we're just going to wait for a little bit and then I'll reveal who I have unless you've seen in the description below who's all here today. But right now it's not showing up for Ryan and we need your laptop.
Where am I supposed to be seeing?
Let me see.
Under videos?
Right there. Or no, go to videos. Sorry. Okay, I'll have to edit this one. I don't know why it's not showing up. Okay. Anyways, we'll just continue. So hi, Nicole, and hi, Boeing. So if you guys have astrology questions, you can start asking them in just a second. We're just trying to get everything set up. But Ernst, why don't you just come sit down and we'll just like kind of move it around until we can get it set up. I don't know why it's not showing up for you. Maybe you have a weird internet connection. So before we start the Q&A, I'm just going to introduce everyone that's here today. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. So thank you all for being patient with us. And okay, and so sorry, everyone's talking. All right, so we're gonna get started. And the first astrologer that I have on this panel of astrologers is Channing. How do you say your last name?
Ayers.
Channing Ayers. So Channing is, what was that?
I've been saying it wrong.
Okay.
I didn't know that either.
Channing,
That's fine.
Channing is an astrologer that lives in Asheville. She's done a lot of work with Ryan, and she's an amazing astrologer. I've watched a lot of different things that she's done. I don't even know if you have that many videos, but they've all been really good, the ones I've seen. So we're happy to have her. She's also studied a little Western astrology, so it's very, very cool. Corey, you've probably seen Corey on my channel already. We talked a lot about, I think, just like a bunch of random stuff. We got into birds and it was a really fun discussion. It was like kind of a bad Mars day, so we had some technical difficulties, but that was fun. And Corey has his own channel. It is Eye of the Veda, and it's a really great one. He just did a really cool video on omens I have to go check out. So yeah, we have Corey. He's also a student of Ernst. I guess we're all students of Ernst, right? And then we have Ernst. So you guys probably know Ernst. Ernst was already on my channel. He is really amazing with cards and astrology. So please feel free to ask whatever questions you want to Ernst. And Ryan was recently on my channel. We have him here. We have Kim in the background. And, Ryan is an amazing astrologer as well. I highly recommend him with his courses and all of that. So there's just too much to say about all these amazing astrologers. So I'm going to stop there and we're going to start answering your questions. So we already have some questions, and what we're going to do is kind of move this laptop further so you can see all of us. And if you can't hear us, let us know and we'll, adjust. But
we'll talk about.
Yeah. And then maybe push the front down.
Yeah.
So here we all are. So thanks for coming. And can you just hand me that laptop so I can read off the questions?
Sure.
Thank you. All right. So the first question we have, and there are people in here. So is planetary war between, okay, I don't understand that question. Okay, is planetary war between Mars and Mercury very malefic? Please tell about it. Mercury is in lower degree than Mars in sign of Gemini. Mercury 17 degrees Gemini, Mars 18 degrees Gemini. So can you talk a little bit? Can anyone here talk a little bit about planetary war?
Well, the most important thing is that you have to first decide if there is planetary war. And planetary wars has to be calculated on visual conjunction, not on ecliptic or zodiacal conjunction. So when you're, planets, one's at 17, one's at 17 and a half in the zodiac, you can't tell if it's in planetary war. So it may or may not be. In fact, it's probably not. So you might notice sometimes if you look up at the sky, you'll see two planets really close together. And then you go and you calculate a chart for that moment and they're 10 degrees apart. You're like, wait a minute, why is that? Well, for planetary war, it's the visual conjunction from where you're at that's important, not the ecliptic or zodiacal conjunction. And this is something that's regularly calculated incorrectly. All the old books, all the old astronomical books say this is how you calculate it. The only astrologer I've known who's calculated it correctly was Hart Defoe. And so really, this is probably not a planetary war. Now, let's pretend it was. But it needs to be checked with a different calculation that you can't just look at the chart and do it, unfortunately.
Like what they call local space, right?
You have to use the local space.
I remember you mentioning
So this person probably doesn't have it. It's like 1 in 5 chance that it's actually a war when you think there is.
Okay, that makes sense. And anyone want to answer Jupiter transit on natal Venus, Mars? Okay, well, we're not going to answer. So the one thing you can't ask during this live video is like about your chart specifically, because charts don't just, the different things in your chart, they don't work in isolation. So unless we had your chart in front of us, which we're not going to do today, we're not going to answer. But Jupiter transiting your natal Venus in general, what would you guys want to say about that?
Oh, that's a
Anyway,
good question
so-
for
Me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Corey, take it.
Jupiter transiting your natal Venus. Well, that can depend on what you have going on in your chart, but that can trigger relationship stuff. You know, those are two important relationship planets. That can trigger, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird to just say one thing about the person's chart.
Yeah,
I mean,
so don't ask just about your
if you
chart.
want to know like a little more, but yeah, whatever Venus represents, it can expand, it can do better, it can get manifested, but that will depend on.
You know, what you can do is, you know, you can make a safe sort of risky prediction just saying when Jupiter is crossing, you know, your Venus, not just in the sign, but if it's actually in the, is he saying a conjunction?
Yeah, he said transiting over Venus.
Okay, so if Jupiter is actually transiting over Venus, and it's actually, when it actually hits it, that's a trigger for Venetian things, which can mean a relationship, a new car, some Venetian thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to always give that depending on what's going on with the dashas, but you'd be surprised how often it will. Mm-hmm. And when I first started with astrology, you know, I was just really green. I had a friend, and he came in for like a reading, one of those useless, really bad beginning readings. And I said, well, it's Venus, maybe hitting Jupiter's going to cross your Venus, you know, in August, and it'll trigger a relationship. So he did not talk to any girls until August, because he was like this. He was thinking, this has got to be the one, because it was predicted. Then that day came along in August, and he met a girl and had a relationship with her for a couple of years. So I got really lucky, and you will get beginner's luck. So you can say to some degree of accuracy, yeah, there's a chance, you know, a decent chance that when Jupiter crosses your Venus, it'll trigger a relationship. That's like to the degree, okay? Mm-hmm. But you know, it's not going to work every time, but it'll work enough that you can say, you know, it's a good possibility, unless your dashas are throwing it off and saying, if you're in a dasha that's like nothing for relationships, you'll fail. But if not, you know, you'll hit it home. So that's how I would answer that one.
And I remember Jupiter crossing over my Venus was a time, because I'm a musician, and that was a time when I was making music nonstop. It was just
entertaining.
One thing after, and I was very in love, so it was like love, music. It wasn't just one Venusian thing. It was
so
like,
if you're an entertainer, it's different.
Yeah, it's a really nice thing. But then it was still relationships, but there were other things showing that, like my dasha was a relationship dasha. So yeah, you have to see a few different things. Okay, Jamie Stevens, this is a good question. We can all answer this. Which of you has studied astrology the longest?
I don't know.
I feel,
I don't know. When did you start?
Yeah, because you started
when you were a kid, right?
Yeah, I was around there with my mom.
Yeah,
so, but I wouldn't say I sat down and started studying it more seriously until I was in my 30s. So, you know, studying it and being around it are two different things. But it's definitely been in my life for a very, very long time. Not that it made a bunch of sense.
Definitely, you take the cake.
Yeah, I'm like 1991.
Yeah, that's a long time.
26 years. Yeah.
I was like 4.
This is Nicole's story.
I mean, I haven't studied astrology as long as any of you, because I've been mostly in tarot cards.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of my background. All right. So
that was easy to answer.
Yeah, Dan Hendricks is in the house. Dan. Hi, Dan. So nice to see you. Dan was on my channel, so everyone say hi to him.
Hello.
So are any of y'all, just kidding, he didn't say y'all.
Ryan is.
Yeah, Ryan's teaching at the conference. The question is, who's teaching at the conference? So Ryan's going to be doing that And the coolest thing about Ryan teaching at the conference is that, not to give out my chart, but that's going to be during my peak Saturn return. So that's pretty cool. Sagittarius being, you know, teachers, gurus.
Yeah, so I get to symbolize her Saturn.
Yeah, see, that Saturnian thing for me. So it's pretty cool.
And we're trying to really amp up for Saturn returning before the exact moment. We started early.
Well, yeah, we. So if you guys want to hear like,
No, we don't want to.
you want to say? Okay, we're not going to go there. All right, so Chaya is asking, is it bad to have Saturn in Rohini? So first, I just want to say I don't think anything's bad, but I want to know if someone wants to answer.
Yeah, I would never say it's bad to have any planet in any nakshatra exactly. It really depends on the condition of the planet. If the planet's aspected by his friends and or in a friend sign, it's going to do well in that nakshatra. If the planet's, you know, combust and debilitated, doesn't have big bala, it's not going to be very happy in that nakshatra. So it depends on the quality of the planet. The nakshatra is not going to define the planet as good or bad. Other than if it's in the 3rd, 5th, or 7th nakshatra from the moon, it'll be a little harder to access that planet.
Okay.
You know, and so it'll be more of a struggle to get that planet, and you might have to work harder for it. There might be some more delays. But, you know, the final outcome, if it's a good or bad thing, is it a good or bad planet?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Excellent response.
You're welcome,
Yeah,
right?
that makes sense. Okay, and sorry if I'm barely paying attention because I'm reading the questions and I'm listening to you guys, but are there any yogas for moksha? And we are actually talking about that a little bit with the K2 stuff, so that'd be a nice thing to bring up again.
Sure. Right.
Well, some of the medieval texts, and by medieval texts I mean like, say, 500 AD onwards, about the 16th century, they do have some yogas for liberation, but they don't work.
So the 5th and the 9th and the 12th doesn't work?
They usually relate to 12th house yogas. And you'll find, you know, in some of the books, they just have chapters on yogas, like 1st house yogas, 2nd house yogas, 3rd house yogas. And then in the 12th house yoga section or the 9th house yoga section, they'll give some yogas for moksha, but they don't work. And you can't expect them to, because yogas are based on a chart that changes every 2 hours, which means everyone born in that 2-hour period is going to have moksha if that yoga is there. It does. We're not that lucky, right? So there is some really good yogas in the old books, but you have to really discriminate. There are techniques, however, for, you know, predicting moksha, and those are in the Jaimini school. And you need very precise birth time. You need to know, you got to have the exact right Shashtyam Shalagna, which is the D60 Varga, the exact right 12th cusp in the D60. You need an accurate time because, you know, people born 2 minutes apart, they're not both enlightened. So you're really going to really fine judgment. But Jaimini answers that problem.
Right, and you can't just say like, if you have Rahu in the 6th, K2 in the 12th, this is your last lifetime.
No, you'll just
It's
like wish it was your last
people.
lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, 1 in 12 people, that's not.
Yeah.
You have to do a lot more work than that.
Yeah.
But people will hear that and then they'll think that and then they'll
And they
feel
won't
like
try
they're
to
done
do
with their
anything
karma.
towards their liberation.
Well, then they might go farther though.
Then what?
They might go further if they stop trying as hard.
Oh yeah, yes, there's that too.
Yeah, the
So
element of
it's
surrender
part of
comes
it.
into play.
Okay, so next question. What do you approach cards for versus charts? And actually, this is a good question for Ernst, but I could also answer this question a bit too. So for cards, actually, like to me, since I've been studying them so long, like questions in the moment, like if I'm doing a reading for someone, because I do integrated readings. So if I'm doing my diamond reading and someone asks me a question, that would take like 30 minutes or like even a day to find out from the chart. I will look at the cards. And so to me, cards are more immediate. Cards give greater details, I would think. And I think charts are really good for finding missing objects, but I feel like I haven't found a good way to use cards for finding missing objects. And really, I feel like sometimes cards can tell more about like what's really on the client's mind at the time of the reading, whereas charts are like more so maybe about like the general themes of your life at the time, but not maybe as much about your like experience of those themes. But that's maybe as I go deeper into astrology, that will kind of shift for me. So that's what I would say.
I mean, I agree. I do a similar thing. I think it's just natural when it comes to really quick things, you can't beat cards.
Yeah, like last minute readings.
Yeah, if somebody has a specific question, you know, casting cards is just a really nice way to go. If, you know, it's just such a nice way. You can answer specific questions with the chart, but then you have to sit down and say, okay, the question is about this. That's this house and this Varga, and this dasha, and I have to look at all these things.
You have to like separate all the other stuff.
And you have to like ignore everything else.
Yeah.
Whereas I can just grab the deck of cards, throw down 7 to 10 cards, answer that question. And it's amazing the level of detail that casting cards will give.
Yeah.
And then there's the cards of truth system, the birth card system, where we calculate a birth spread for you based on your time. And that's I like using for just a quick way to make predictions down to a 52-day window.
Yeah.
Predicting with astrology to a 52-day window is really hard to get that small window, because you can work down to 3 dasha levels and you can still be at a 6-month window. So you can say, oh, it'll be in this 3rd level dasha, and it's like 6 months. Whereas you can, with the cards, you just have to work it down to the year, and then this 1/7 year, which is a 52-day window.
Yeah.
And so it's really kind of nice and easy.
And that's using that system is how I predicted that my boyfriend was going to fall in love during that 52-day window, and that I was going to fall in love during the same window. And it was like loosely shown by my chart, but it was like to that exact period. And then I could look at the weeks, and I was like seeing the evolution of like our relationship through the cards. And I've even told people on my channel before, I predicted one time my boyfriend wanted to hang out with me, and he was like, what time are we going to hang out tomorrow? And I really didn't know, because I didn't know my schedule. So I looked at my cards of truth spread, and I saw his card pop up at like 1:01 p.m. And at 1:01 p.m. was the time that he actually ended up arriving at my house that day. So it was to the minute. So like, it's not like you can just force yourself to make these predictions, but it's like, it's very, very clearly there. If you know the birth cards of everyone around you, you can kind of predict their movements. And if you're going to have a bad time with them that day, like with my clients, I'm like,
did you have a bad time earlier today, or how was your day going?
Well, we're not going to talk about
Look
that.
at the cards for that.
One of the nice things about using the birth card system, though, is that you look at your natal chart, you're looking at your entire life in that natal chart. And then we have timing systems, the dashas, to say, okay, which part of this entirety of your life is waking up right now in this part of your life? But it's so complicated. There's layers upon layers upon layers of data. And then we have something called solar returns, or Varshafala. And I always say, when it comes to astrology, the easiest way to predict your life is using the Varshafala, the solar returns, because then you have one chart for 1 year. With the birth card system, we're doing the same thing. Every year, you get a new birth spread. And so you just say, okay, this spread applies to this year. And if I read it well, I'll nail this year. Whereas if you can look at the birth chart, you can say, okay, if I just read this chart well, I could just give them the gist of their life. I can't tell them what's going to happen next year. I have to read this chart extremely well to tell them what's going to happen in this year. So it becomes so much more difficult to make predictions from a natal chart.
This in some ways, Prajna is a little bit like that too.
Prajna is like casting cards. It kind of gives that immediate, okay, I can count on this for this short period of time, and everything that's in here is in this period of time.
And you don't need the birth time.
And you don't need the birth time.
Right.
Yeah, you bet.
Carmina and I just made a video about that when we were just talking about all that stuff. So if you guys are curious about Prajna, go and watch that video.
Yeah, and Ryan's doing lots of Prajna readings too.
Oh yeah, he's only doing Prajna after a certain point. So maybe you want to say a little bit about Prajna so people can know what it's all about.
Well, Prajna basically looks at the time that a question is asked, and then from that time you make a birth chart, and then you look at the chart, looking at the houses and the planets related to the question, and then you make the prediction, or you answer the question. If they're good indications, it's positive. If they're negative indications, they're negative. So it's pretty simple.
So why are you choosing to do that now instead of look at natal charts? That's the question, really.
Because I find it to be more accurate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because we don't always know a person's.
Well, because you don't know their birth time. But what I found is that when someone's asking a question, they really want to know the answer to that question. And so when they really want to know the answer to that question, for some odd reason, I don't know why, it gets more clear. And when someone comes in and say, well, just tell me about myself. Well, then there's just all these hundreds of random permutations that you can look at, and you might get a lot of them right. But with Prajna, since it's so intense in their mind, it just becomes very obvious to see what they want to know and how to respond to that.
And it's really cool because we were talking earlier about like the idea that like back in the day they were like casting Prajna charts before they would do, I don't know, what was it, surgery or something like that, things like that, where it was like more common. And I feel like we're going back into that energy again. So
it's also like work in a way, right? I mean, because you're just picking a time
in a way,
that supports what's going on. So I mean, it's not exactly the same.
like we were talking about earlier, like doctors would, you know, house calls and like family doctors, they would cast a Prajna chart when they were called about an illness, they would cast a Prajna right
Yeah,
then.
and it works great. You know, I'm trying to get in the habit. I always remember when someone, you know, asks me about their issue, cast a Prajna, and from the Prajna we can see, you know, how, the severity of the disease really easily. And then what I like to see, we can say, okay, is the doctor going to be able to manage this case?
Oh, yeah.
And then is the medicine going to be right for them, or the treatment? And then the biggest thing is the person going to deal with it effectively? You know, I had one case with the person we tried helping, but they have, you know, the first house was trashed with malefics, which means the person themselves will do something to ruin the treatment and not get well because of their own error. And this person just did not take the treatment seriously. They sabotaged themselves, and they just gave up on their life, you know. And that was shown in that Prajna chart. So you can just predict where the health case is going to go.
Wow.
And that's kind of nice to know, because then you can see where your failing's coming from. Is the doctor is it above the doctor's head? Is it that the remedy's just not right? Or is the disease just so severe it's not curable? Or is the person just an idiot and is not going to do what they need to do to get better?
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because you can also like do that with cards before you do a reading or things like that, to see like how the client's going to respond to your reading and things like that. It's just really interesting. Cards are pretty.
Well, the neat thing about Prajna too is you can often see what the person's going to ask before they ask the question.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, that's cool, because I don't study Prajna, so I'm excited.
Yeah, they shouldn't have to ask the question. If you really know what you're doing, you should say, well, you know, I wanted to tell you that, you know, no, this will not happen.
Right.
Like,
this relationship's not going to work. Or
Well, that's what I like about tarot, because usually I say you can write down questions, but by the end of the reading, they're probably all going to be answered. So just like be patient and don't talk, and like just take it in. And it all like 99.9% of the time, that's what happens.
Yeah, it's really better. And really the best card readers do that. They don't wait for you to ask the question. They cast it and they try to divine the question. If you can get on track with the question, then you know you're going to do a good reading. And that's a scary place to be, to cast the card and say, well, I think this is about this type of thing. But it's really worth doing, because if you can't, well, how can the person expect you to predict the outcome if you can't predict the situation, right?
Yeah, because you have to tap into the energy. And like I was saying in my other video, tapping into the energy of the moment, it's like the seed, and the seed has the tree or the future within it. So it's like, if you can at least access the seed, which is easier to access, you can like go in and see the rest, right?
What I've always found fascinating with Prajna is that since I don't always do the Prajnas when someone asks me the question, they'll send me an email, and I won't get to it until a couple of days later. What I always find fascinating is that when I do Prajnas for that day, every Prajna is about relationships. Every Prajna is about health. And it's all, they've written within random other periods of time. But I just happen to open them.
I have that too, where clients will have the same combinations or the same questions, or I'll feel like I'm giving them the same exact advice, and I feel like almost like a hoax or something, but I'm like, no, it's just the energy of the day is supportive of this kind of concept.
Yeah,
I used to work at do readings at the farmers market for a few hours, and I'll have 3 hours of only talking about one topic with 20-minute readings for people. So I'd do like 6 readings for people, all about one issue. You know what I mean? That just was showing up in every person's chart.
The other neat thing you can do is take what I used to do when I would do what you were talking about, going places and doing those things, is I didn't bring my laptop with me, and I would just print out the time, or I would print out the chart for say 1 p.m., 3:30, and so on, and I would only take the questions at that time.
Okay.
And so when the people showed up, they always responded or corresponded to the question. So you understand what I'm saying?
No, actually I don't.
Like, so I wouldn't put the question in. I knew I was going to be there for say 6 hours.
Okay.
And so every half hour I would print out, before I got there, I printed out the chart for that time.
Oh, I get it.
And I would not let anyone ask the question until that time happened. So then I would make sure that chart was what I was using to answer the question.
Okay, that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
So the people are inspired to ask the question in that moment.
Right.
And aligns
whoever happens to
and
ask
it's the same thing as a
moment.
card. So we're all tapping into the same energetic principle
Yes.
when we're using the cards and the astrology, is that everything's communicated.
And you know what's, I think Ernst will find this really interesting, is I was doing Cards of Truth at like an event, and I probably read for like 15 or 20 people at that event, like really short readings. And I think probably, I don't know, like 90% of the people all got the 10 of Clubs come up. And it was so interesting that I was shuffling the deck, I was having them draw the cards, and so
that's cool.
So with the cards, you'll actually see like the same card come up.
Yeah,
the same...
so the cards are reflecting the astrology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
But the thing that's good for astrologers to know prajna, because you read these books that say the astrologer should wake up, bathe, do their prayers, and then figure out where the planets are for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And so if you do that, then you don't need your computer, because when someone asks you a question, you just remember where it might be.
I think,
that's how
they used to do it.
With old astrologers used to do, based on where they lived, they knew what time the lagna would change, the ascendant would change.
Exactly.
So when somebody asked them a question, they look at their watch or see what time it is, and they in their heads they quickly calculate the ascendant, and then they already knew where the planets were. So somebody could ask them a question, they could just answer it without any apparent chart or anything. And I used to do that actually. I used to, I made little tables for myself. Okay, so this is how to calculate the lagna for this time, and you learn that. Okay, where I live, the lagna is going to change, this fast at this time of the day. There's this little mathematical formula you can do it. It's sort of a cool old way to do it. You didn't have to whip out your phone,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like even with prajna, just in the sense of like the energy of the day, something that I always do is like I go on a walk every day. And so I've been talking about omens nonstop lately, but I like gauge the energy of the day and just how I feel before all my readings, just so like I can use that as the energetic backdrop of everything too. And that seems to make a lot of difference in the readings. Okay, so let's see what other questions we have. According to Parashara, okay, well, I guess we can answer that. According to Parashara, Amakarka and Pisces gives emancipation. Would you agree with that?
Totally.
Yeah, totally. With qualifications though.
Yeah.
So
again, 1 in 12 people.
Yeah, that would be nice. So when Amakarka is in the Pisces Navamsha, it's a combination for liberation, but that's just the very beginning of analyzing that potential. You also have to find a combination for liberation, a Jaimini principle for liberation in the D24. You have to find in the D60. And then the planet that's giving liberation, in this case, that Makaraka, has to be related to the 12th house in the Rashi chart. So there's all these other conditions have to line up. And so if those don't line up, no, it's not going to happen. Otherwise, 1 out of 12 people would be enlightened. And that would be a wonderful world to live in, I think.
Are you talking about Jupiter too? Jupiter and Pisces?
No.
K2 and the 12th from the
K2 and the 12th from the Makaraka, from the Swamsha.
In the 12th or aspect?
In the 12th.
Okay, so what does it mean when a nakshatra is repeated twice in the chart? That's a simple question.
So that means like several planets in the nakshatra?
Yeah, I don't know what they mean by that.
I think they just mean like they have like a lot of kritika or a lot of bharani or something.
Okay.
It just means that you have more of that energy, you have more of that to work out, you have more of that to experience. So it's just growing of your consciousness. So you're going to grow more of your consciousness. So whatever planets are in there, if it's Mars energy, Venus energy, so say they're both in Kritika, you're going to grow your Mars and your Venus in that similar way through similar symbolism, symbology, like subconscious things that come through.
And the sun ruling Kritika, so that the ruling planet of that nakshatra is going to come into play.
Yeah,
for
so
both of those planets.
It's just you're going to be more in that energy and in those themes. I mean, I don't know if there's anything more to say about that one. And then someone said, what do you mean about that question? Okay, Spokane. Who are you speaking to, Spokane? Because we have got a lot of astrologers here and you're asking about your first reading back in September and it was amazing. And you want a different kind of reading. Are there different ones? So let me know who you're trying to speak to because I don't recognize
anybody.
I
mean, there's so many different things you can do. There's the natal chart reading. What does that mean? Well, that means something different for every reader. The reader's going to use his favorite techniques on your natal chart, but really most readers know enough techniques to do on your natal chart to give you a good half dozen readings.
Yes,
that's true.
You can always come back. Like David Frawley usually does his sessions. Like you come back like over 3 months or over 6 months to go through everything in your chart. Like I offer a past life reading. I offer like a diamond reading, which has like astrology and the cards of truth. I have a cards of truth reading. So like depending on who you go to, they're gonna specialize, or I'm like more broad about things, and I've got a lot of things I offer. So
you can specialize in career readings. There are people who are specializing in mundane astrology, the prajna, Muhurta. I mean, there's always
relationships.
different, I guess he doesn't even know what that means, we should probably explain, but mundane astrology is like predicting events for the world, but not as many people do that because nations don't come and pay your bills, you know, so most of us are doing individual readings, but even within that, there's like health readings. And,
Yeah, those are really fun.
And we've been
Yeah,
having
we can
fun
keep
sort
going.
of looking at each other's charts and talking about it because
and
everyone,
we read each other's charts.
everyone
Yes, we
is
all know
going to
different
see something
stuff.
different. Every single reader is going to see something similar possibly and something different. And so each, you know,
And really, the reader is going to differentiate what you get more. So you can go to 10 natal readings with 10 different astrologers and get completely different readings. And all of them can be correct and not redundant because there's just
there's
so
much.
many different, there's so much to a person
Yeah.
that you can't cover it in 3 hours.
No.
You know, you can scratch the surface in 3 hours
Yeah.
and help them with their current dilemmas. And that's about it.
I feel like I've read for some people like 3 times within a month just with different readings, and then I've read for the same people over years, just like one reading a year, you know, so it's like there's always different things to read about. Just depends on what you're looking for. Okay, Ernst, is your moon in Vishaka?
No, it's not.
It's not.
You can try again though.
Yeah, try again.
3 guesses. Okay.
Yeah, 3 guesses.
Okay, so we can't answer specific questions. We're gonna skip that one. And do the charts show spikes of when mass spiritual awakenings happen? That's kind of a cool question. So like, is there anything that you noticed that will like spike? And I don't know if she's talking about in general,
Like
but
Jupiter and Scorpio.
or yeah, probably in general because she said mass. So yeah,
Mass.
Jupiter and Scorpio is
Well,
like,
I would say anytime Jupiter's in a Brahmin sign, a water sign, there's going to be, you know, more spiritual awareness developing if there's not something else, you know, holding it all back. But, you know, I think really, you know, spiritual awakenings, what it, you know, that's such a relevant term. When somebody says spiritual awakening, I think of someone really reaching a high level of spirituality beyond ego. And no, there's not going to be spikes in the world when that happens because it's a very individual thing.
and we have the yugas going on, which is another thing to like kind of understand that we're in these cycles of consciousness where we know more at some times and we know less, and these are thousands of years, and you probably know the specifics. I bet it's
Yeah, so in Satya Yuga, another, you know, say, I don't know, 10,000 years, that will be a time when there's a lot more spiritual awakening. So.
Yeah, that's a big spike.
But I don't plan on being around here then, you know.
or you'll be reincarnated
At
as
least
some
not as me.
spiritual master. Okay, this is a simple question. I heard K2 and Moon Nakshatra tell the most about a person. What do you think? What do you think about K2? This is like
Interesting. That's kind of
Nancy is
cool.
asking if the K2 Nakshatra and Moon Nakshatra are the most important, or say the most about.
I think Nancy has good intuition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Nancy's a
So Nancy
psychic.
wins the, you know, the Facebook award for the most brilliant
YouTube.
astrologer today,
Yeah.
who's watching astrology. But
Good
yeah,
job.
in fact, I would say the K2 nakshatra is the most important nakshatra. And that's one thing we spent pretty much all day chatting about,
All night.
picking on each other's charts over the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
That's great.
But yeah, K2 nakshatra is hugely important. So yeah, definitely devote a lot of time to that.
And what did you
Yes.
say about the moon nakshatra?
Moon nakshatra is your healthiest nakshatra. So
Yeah,
it's
you're
a very
saying that.
capable part of you. You know, you could say it's your most capable nakshatra, and it ultimately, the life you build you're gonna build it based on the merit of your moon nakshatra. But the life you build is not just dependent on your moon nakshatra, it's dependent upon all your other planets. But really, when it comes to your, you know, what's ruining your life, what's making your life not work, the K2 nakshatra is the key thing to examine. And you can, you know, spend hours talking about that. If you ever look back in your life and say, how did I end up here? 90% chance the answer is in your K2 nakshatra. If not, look for it in your Rahu nakshatra or your K2 position. But the nakshatra is really, really important. And it's because of overusing that nakshatra, you'll get stuck in it. Whatever that nakshatra qualities are, you'll have such a great need to do it that in doing that, you'll end up sabotaging a lot of other areas of your life or not experiencing them fully because you're too busy getting stuck on K2.
Yes. Because K2 is where you're coming from and not where necessarily you want to be or where you want to grow.
Integrate your Rahu nakshatra and then you'll live longer, be happier, and not need to call your neighborhood astrologer ever again.
Okay, simple question. There are angel cards, Nicole. I don't personally read them, but there are plenty of readers that do. So those exist, and they're definitely a way to just like tap into the energy of the moment, as we were talking about. Moon and Ketu is a bad combo, not necessarily always. It can make, I think personally, it can make a very like intuitive person a lot of good things. So it's not necessarily something you should just look at and think that it's negative.
Yeah, what you have to do with that, anytime you get K2 with Moon or K2 with any planet, there's a possibility that planet causes you huge problems, but it's only going to do it if it has certain weaknesses. Any planet that's with K2 or with Rahu is going to be in an intense situation, in very different situations, but both will be intense. And if there's a weakness to that planet, the intensity will destroy that planet. But intense situations, when it comes to strength, really brings out the best of people. That's why you can't say, oh, Jupiter, Rahu people, shoot them all. You know, they're evil. You know, where they have a special name for the yoga, Guru Chandala yoga. You know, truth is, if you search for Jupiter, Rahu people, you'll see some of the most brilliant, humanistic people who've served the world more than anyone else have Jupiter, Rahu conjunctions. And then, yeah, you'll see total psychopaths, mass murders with Jupiter Rahu conjunction. The difference is, you know, for both of them, Jupiter's in a very intense situation. If the person has a good enough Jupiter and a holistically good enough chart to rise above that, you know, that's where heroes are born out of. You know, strength, human, you know, the human greatness is not born out of comfort. It's born out of intense situations that cause people to rise above the situation. And it's a real difficult thing to judge. Is this person going to arrive above the situation with their Jupiter or their Moon K2 or whatever, or are they going to succumb to it? So you can't just say, oh, they're Moon K2 and, you know, or they're anything like that. I wish astrology was that easy. If astrology was that easy, I could write one book that's a 1/4-inch thick and that's all you'd ever need.
If that was the case, we would just be doing superstitious stuff, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not what it is.
And there is no good or bad. There's, you know, that the challenges, like you said, are what pushes us. You know, so we have different planets that are, you know, with different things. We have to be working through that. It's exactly perfectly what we need.
Yes, I was just going to say it's like the exact thing that you need.
It's that.
And I think this is a good question for Channing because you really studied some Western astrology, and this person said that they've come across some interesting discussions about Pluto and Virgo, like it's a thing. Are you familiar?
That Pluto and Virgo is a thing.
Yeah.
They recently started studying astrology.
Yeah, so
well, you know, when you read, like, when you start studying Western astrology, is that an important thing? Like, is it a thing?
Yeah.
It's an overall general theme when you have Pluto, because Pluto takes so long going through signs. So you get generations where everyone in that whole generation has that 10 to 20 years. Yeah. So the thing, I mean, and Pluto is sort of a separating factor. It's about dissolving the ego. So, you know, if you have other planets there, it could be a thing, you know, depending on the rest of the chart. But these days, I don't use the outer planets the same way that I used to when I was starting Western astrology. I use them sparingly, and I use them to see an overall general. Now, if you have Mars there with Pluto or something, then you would pay attention to that. Because Mars is very strongly aligned with Pluto, and different planets conjuncting Pluto can give different energies. But in general, I would put the outer planets on the back burner and wait until later to learn about them.
Yeah, because a lot of people
use them. A lot of people use them as a crutch. So whether you're studying Western astrology or Vedic astrology, personally, I think it would be better to not use them as much as they have been used, and to bring them in later after you've used all of the inner planets and can do all of the understanding of the chart, and then start using the outers.
Yeah, I would agree with you with that. But it is, you know, I think with Western astrology, Pluto is so interesting to study, and there are a lot of neo-Vedic astrologers that use the outer planets. I actually use the outer planets. I know that you do a little bit. I think I almost use them more than a lot of people, just because I see them really.
Yeah, the outer planets are a great shortcut to get to a person's problems. Wow, definitely.
But if this person's just a beginner and studying and is asking Pluto and Virgo, is it a thing? It's not a thing anymore than any Pluto and any other sign.
Yes,
so,
that's a great
For a person with Pluto and Virgo, I have to disagree.
Really?
But no, it's, again, Pluto's not going to do better or worse than any other sign. Where you're going to get Pluto causing you trouble is when Pluto's joined with Saturn, and then Pluto joined with Rahu too can be really intense. Both of those can be really hard to get past. You can say the person's going to be in a more challenging environment. It's going to be harder for them to get some serious stuff done they need to.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, those who do go a long ways.
Mm-hmm.
But Pluto Saturn is particularly tough. It's very hard to get past.
And would you
that.
see a lot of health problems in Virgo with Pluto Saturn? Pluto
You probably would with Pluto Saturn.
in Virgo too.
Yeah.
Saturn, it's a health.
Any planet in Virgo is more inclined to be sick. All other factors equal.
Okay. And we're just going to take a few more questions because we're not going to stay on too late unless you guys feel like talking more.
Unless they're really fun questions.
Well, these are the fun questions.
Okay.
I have a serious question, Carol says. Why do all male astrologers grow their hair long?
Not Michael Reed.
Yeah, Michael Reed is a real astrologer. He doesn't grow his hair long. It's just the ones that live in the U.S.
I mean, personally, I just don't find time to cut my hair when I have all that stuff in it.
What about you?
Yeah, I think my hair looks good. You know, I don't think I need a reason.
He has
I have
a
a
good
long-
hair. Okay.
Bye, Kim.
Bye, Kim. It was so nice to meet you.
Sorry
We
you
have
have
to
to go.
compare our charts later.
I'll see you tomorrow, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see that.
Okay. So back, we broke the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, and Ryan won't answer that question since he's
I'll
on.
answer it when it's
Why do you grow your hair long?
I'll answer it when I get back.
Okay,
Okay.
so he'll come back and answer it. Okay, Ernst, you can answer this if you want to. Talk about what made you take me as your student.
Yeah, well, what made me was like 10 guys with guns showed up and said, take her a guy. But seriously,
I hired them.
I don't really discriminate. Anyone's welcome to study with me.
That's a good
You know,
answer.
some people have this attitude that, oh yeah, if you're like totally awesome, you can study with me. But my attitude is, Charles Manson can come and study with me. You know, Hitler can study with me. I feel like if what I'm teaching is real and it's truthful, it'll make the worst person a better person.
Mhm.
And if the person's a decent person, when they start off, so much the better. But I don't really discriminate. Everyone's not allowed to come to my house though.
You have to study
So
their
the
chart.
question you
Let's
should be
do it long
asking
hair.
is, why did you like, Nicole come to your house? You know?
We had chart member.
One more question.
And it was just, fate made me do it.
They were asking why Ernst took me as a student. He said, I'll take anyone as a student, but I won't let anyone come to my house. And that was it. But the other question, they're getting real deep here.
Yeah.
So
that's okay.
why did you grow your hair long?
Well,
What's the deal?
I was always idolizing Jimmy Page since I was about 9 years old. So I've always liked to have long hair. And my cousin was 8 years older than me. He played guitar, and I thought it was cool. So I've always liked to have long hair. So that's why. Although some people accuse me of trying to be like Paramahansa, but
No, I mean, really,
that's not it.
I mean, my real story while my hair is long is very pathetic, but I figured I should tell it. So, back when I had my first girlfriend, billions of years ago, she had sent me this little picture of what she thought would be a really good haircut for me. She knew about all that stuff. So she knew how your hair would lie and what would be a good haircut and blah, 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 blah. So she said, oh, you should get a cut like this. I'm like, no, I'm not going to get a cut. And it was just kind of longish, it was just, I used to cut it for 6 months or something. But she was a New Yorker, and you know how they get their hair trimmed and everything. But a friend of mine just graduated from cutting school, hair cutting school. So I went to her, and it was like going to be a surprise. Get my hair cut, show up, and she'd go, wow, I can't believe you got cut. It'll be so cool. So I go there, and I get it cut, and I was all excited. And she sees my hair, she looks at it, and she goes, oh no, what did she do? She goes, and she knew I had that friend. She goes, oh, she cut it so bad, she did this wrong and this wrong. This girl used to get $600 haircuts at one point in her life. So, she was making $300,000 a year as a model. So she was getting to this one. So everything was wrong about it. I really liked it. It was the best haircut I ever had, I still have my old driver's license from there with that. It's the only picture I have of that. And it was like, oh my God, screw this. This is stupid getting your hair cut. So after I was like, screw it, I can get my hair cut. Then it got long. I was like, I kind of like this, So after that, I was like, wow, it's so great. I don't have to waste time getting it cut. It's just don't have to worry about it. And then, of course, after getting into yoga more and realizing that you do bring a lot of prana in, into your medulla, and your hair supports that. And having long hair is also healthier. So as I learned that, I just kind of liked it. But the reason I kind of just got the screw it, I'll never cut my hair, is because I had this very bad day. So now I'm humiliated. Please ask me a nice question that makes me look cool again.
I mean, I keep my hair long, or I kept my hair long after reading that.
Well, hey, you
yoga
were
stuff
dating
too.
a model. That's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Corey.
Oh my God. Okay, Ernst, this is a quick question. This person's asking why the Cards of Truth Day starts at 2 a.m. Central Time. Does it always?
Okay.
Isn't it just the sunrise?
No. The Cards of Truth day starts at sunrise on the equator.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be at 2 a.m. on the East Coast. It will be between, 5:30 and 6:30 probably. So I don't know what calculation options are using, if they have the software, if they're just doing it. But basically, the default option is sunrise at the equator. There is different options though. You can do it you can start it at, you can start it at midnight. You can start it at sunrise at local time too, but I use sunrise at the equator.
And if you accidentally change it, you'll freak out because your birth card will change, and then you'll think your call is broken.
Yeah, it might change.
I've done that so many times.
So those options are in the owner's manual. And of course, if you go to the website to do it, it defaults to sunrise on the equator at the the longitude. So if you're born, say, 85 east or 85 west, say on the East Coast somewhere 85 west, we're going to find on the equator at 85 west on the equator when the sunrise is there. And because you're north of the equator, that'll be not the exact time it rises where you're at. But the reason we do it for the equator, because if you live north of the 60 degrees north, say you're at 65 north up there in Canada or towards the North Pole, then the sun takes 6 months to rise. So then you can't even have a birth card. You can have 2 birth cards a year. What are they going to be? Or 1 a year, because the sun only rises once a year in the far north. So time, which is what the cards have to be based on, has to be measured at the equator. Okay.
Okay. And do you guys want to stay on for like 10 more minutes, or are you getting sleepy?
Yeah,
okay.
That's a good question.
Yeah. So, what is the significance of Mars and Jupiter both in the 9th house? And Channing isn't speaking very much, so maybe she wants to.
The significance of Mars and Jupiter in the 9th house.
And Corey, because you like that question too.
I did like that question.
Well, Mars and Jupiter support each other, and depending on what your ascendant is, that could even be a Raj Yoga. So it really, you'd have to see the whole chart contextually as well and see what signs you're in. But
if you're a fire or water rising sign, could be a really good thing.
It'll always be good.
Yeah, and it's good for money, and it makes you kind of work for more, and like you earn more for what you're worth, and some people kind of devalue themselves, and I noticed that kind of prevents that, and that's also a great placement for yoga practice if one is into spiritual practice. So watching this, there's a good chance of that. So
it's a tough combination to beat.
Yeah, it's one of the best combinations. Having Mars Jupiter conjunct. JP Morgan, super rich guy, had that. Yeah.
Paramount Yogananda had Jupiter Mars.
That's great. That's in the 9th.
And which sign would you think that's the worst to have it in, and which sign the best?
Oh, that's going to take too long to think, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we'll have to think of every law, house they rules.
Okay.
But in general, if it's in a water sign or fire sign, it'll be best.
Okay, that's good. And Amakar Venus, do we need to shun Venusian things like luxuries, etc.?
No,
not at all.
Yeah.
No, you'd be more Venusian.
Well, Amakara, because Venus can make a person involved in luxuries as a career. It can make them sell eyeglasses, which are ruled by Venus. Lenses are ruled by Venus. It can make a person a corneal specialist if they're a surgeon, because lenses of eyes are ruled by Venus. And it can make a person, someone who makes predictions. But the one thing it does is that wherever your Makaraka planet is, you get a wisdom from it, a type of intelligence from it. So if Mars is your Makaraka, you'll have logic. If Jupiter is there, you'll have wisdom. But what Venus gives, all the planets do. Saturn gives simplicity, the ability to just look at something, see the simple truth to something, instead of being lost in the woods of details and intellectualism. Mercury gives investigative intelligence. But what Venus gives, it's really interesting what Jamie says. It makes a person a kavi, which is a poet. You're like, what? What kind of brains does a poet have? Well, poetry is the ability to see meaning where there is none. And so what Venus is, you can read a person. You can see the meaning where there is none. You can look at the chart, which has no meaning at all, and you can derive meaning from it. You can cast chicken bones. You can read tarot cards. All these things where you're really understanding something when there's no apparent meaning to the average person. That's the gift that Venus can give us on the card. Yeah.
And that's what poets are doing with poems. They're conveying things that basic words and intellect can't convey.
Exactly. It's a sensation.
Yeah.
And do you guys use Nakshatra lords? I personally do.
Raise your hand using chakra lines.
Are we talking like Rahu for Ardra?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the, I don't know if I want to talk about that.
Okay, we'll move on. Okay, and let's see what else we have. Why is it bad for astrologers to give their birth info out? Honestly, it's not bad. A lot of astrologers do. If you get Ernst software, he puts his birth information in there. I personally don't. People that are watching that think they know my birth information, they do not know it. Because it's secretive. I haven't given it out to like anyone except for like very few people. So, and the reason why I don't do it is because I'll get people that email me because they think they know my chart, and they'll be like, in 3 days, you're going to buy a car. And they'll say all this crazy stuff, and it gets stalkerish. And to me, like, one day I'll probably give up my birth information. But right now, it's just like, I don't need people to make predictions about me because I don't want that energy in my life. Because I like to live in the flow of life,
yeah,
I guess.
I think the question I'm asking is that, like, why is it bad? As if there's something like God said it's bad for astrologers to give their info out.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not bad.
It's a personal
God never said
But
so.
I don't think anyone should give their info out unless they're
It's a
interacting
personal-
with someone.
It's a personal
Right.
choice.
Actually, I think it's a completely personal choice.
Yeah.
And what I found over time, some astrologers don't like to give the birth info out because they feel like someone's not going to understand their chart and it's going to be judgmental in a way that's not true.
And that happens.
Yeah.
And astrologers have that feeling though, because they themselves struggle with understanding their chart. Because we don't ever think someone else is going to do something unless we're struggling ourselves. If an astrologer really knows his chart, he's going to be at peace with giving his chart out in that context. And then you get some people, you get a sweet and demure young lady, for instance. And yeah, she might not want to have all that delicate information out there.
Well, people just make these crazy predictions that never come true, and I'm just like, it's bombarding me.
Yeah,
So,
and that's not what you don't want to experience that.
no.
For another person who doesn't read his emails, like me, I give my birth data out. Because you can write your predictions. I just got this amazing button that says DEL, and push it.
Yeah.
And
Right.
whatever you say, it's not going to perturb me. I don't care because your opinion doesn't matter to me. Because I know my chart so well. I know my chart, and I don't need to
Wrong
be
again, right?
concerned about everything.
What?
Yeah.
Right. Their second guess was wrong too on Ernst.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, no, but look at this.
Ooh.
Carol.
Okay, Carol got it on third try.
Yeah. Woo,
Good job, Carol.
Good girl.
Yeah, Mula Nakshatras. So you're going to be having Saturn.
Yeah, Saturn in the Mula Nakshatra now, and it'll be crossing my January 5th.
Yeah,
It'll be crossing my moon.
that's crazy.
One thing I want to say is that as an astrologer, giving out my birth time to other astrologers has helped me learn about astrology.
Well, once
Yeah.
you trust, though.
So once,
Right.
well, I mean, trust is a subjective word.
Okay.
On
Nothing,
some level, like, I trust the universe is I'm tuning in to like what.
I
is good for
love
me.
giving my chart because I know a lot of people looked over and go, huh?
Yeah.
It's like, how would they expect it?
That's what happened. That's what
They're
happened.
like going,
when I
huh?
first looked at your
And
chart.
I like to give a person a high experience.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not ashamed of my chart. I just don't like all that extra baggage.
What?
I don't think that.
Okay.
Well, no, not maybe didn't, but a lot of people do. Because they might cut it.
Yeah, we
This way
answered
they'll
that.
see
I'm
this
going to
in
see
it.
if there's any
There's a
last
lot of
questions.
reasons,
Someone retract.
Depends what they know and don't know. Venus, Mercury, and 7th, 8th house. Huh? I think I was a lot of
Okay.
people know what
Whoops.
yoga is.
So I think that was Astro theme. Okay, we don't use Astro theme because we are Vedic astrologers, and
Wait, isn't Astro theme just like a database?
Yes.
Yeah.
Website.
Yeah, they have.
oh, I
yeah,
thought that was like a
they have like
Astro.com.
charts.
Astro.com is better though. Just go to
I
astro.com.
thought
database?
All the same
Astro
charts
theme,
will be
okay.
there.
But
Yeah.
the birth information on it. So Astro theme has birth
I
information.
thought
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
Okay,
it's good
so-
site. Yes, it's good.
Most of the people on there, they don't have the actual. They just have a 12 noon birth time in their data.
Yeah.
So you have
and
to
our
check
charts
the-
aren't on there. We
You
don't
have
put
to
our
check
charts
the what's her
Mine
name?
is, I think.
There's like a rating on there. You can go A, B, C, D, or whatever. It's the lowest Rodin rating, right? Is that on Astro
I'm
theme?
not sure.
Yes.
So I always check the
Yeah.
rating, and there's like
Mhm.
you can like click on it, and it will explain what it means. And I only pull charts of people that the
Pink sweater guy. I think
Right.
Pink Sweater Guy is the same now, right?
Also, every single person that's here, I've linked to their YouTube channel or their website, so you can get to know everyone a little bit more. So you'll know Corey is the pink sweater guy.
I'm Neapolitan.
Yeah.
That's a better way to put it.
Okay, so you guys are asking me if I'm the youngest, who is the oldest. I don't know if you want to answer that.
I think Corey and Nicole are both the same young.
Yeah, I'm 30.
I'm younger than you.
Oh, okay, younger.
Okay, so I'm just trying to see if you guys have any other questions. Someone was asking, How can you relate nakshatras in day-to-day life? Actually, I can answer this a little bit, but I would like everyone else to too. And to me, the nakshatras come out in the weirdest ways. So just in the dumbest way, like I was posting a photo on Instagram and I used the rabbit emoji for no reason. You know, there's all these different emojis, right? But I chose the rabbit one and I was like, yes, the rabbit. And I was like, I really thought about it. And then I went and I checked the nakshatra because I was like, why did I choose this? And it was Anuradha, which has like some association with the symbolic or the symbolism of a rabbit. So I don't know. Sometimes it's like a random thing, or like you'll see everyone posting like snake stuff.
What about raccoons though?
Well, what did we say? Hosta was raccoons.
Oh,
we
right,
were
the
guessing.
hands.
We were guessing. What would correlate with each nakshatra?
So
pulling things out of the air.
Yeah, we talked about this on the way up here.
Or there's what's it called, swara yoga, where like if you like breathe, if you're breathing through your swara shastra. So Dr. Arjun Pai has this interesting app called Cosmic Insight. So I always check that, and my nostrils always clear on the one that he says it's supposed to be on the day of that nakshatra. So there's that, and then if you like see there are specific things in mundane astrology that are more beneficial to do on certain nakshatra days. And I always check it at the end of the day, and I'm always doing whatever the thing says I'm supposed to be doing beneficially, because I'm like, that means that like, you're in the energy, you're like in the support of whatever the nakshatra is. So that's how I experience it. I don't know if you guys do, but
I like to use them in a muhurta sense for day-to-day life, like if I'm gonna plant things or this or that, and I know that moon's gonna be in Mula tomorrow. I'll just wait then to plant my potatoes or something, you know. And that's a day-to-day thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way for a person to experience it is just to see what the nakshatra is that day, and just, you know, you'll see that energy come in your life. You'll see a flavor of that nakshatra, and that's really that's the best way to learn a nakshatra, is just to, you know, run a transit of when the moon enters every nakshatra, and just watch it and say, oh yeah, I can see that. I can see this nakshatra energy. You know, you go to a group of people one day and things feel a certain way. A week later, you go, it's a different nakshatra, and the whole experience is different. And the nakshatra will be a significant part of why that is. So you can just get a feel for it.
We are starting. I think we're going to be in Ashwini, Bharani, and Kritika Walling here, but I can't remember which one is today. But I know we're starting over. We just went through the Bhadrapads. So we're probably so we're starting up the cycle again. Well, we should know, but I don't even know.
Maybe someone will tell us on the list.
Yeah, please tell us. That is sad.
I'm pretty sure it's your Janma. I think it's your Janma.
Well, I know we're going to be in, I don't know. Anyways, so someone's asking, sometimes I have a problem deciphering South and North Indian charts because they give different results, which should be used. I don't think they give different results.
They won't give different results. It's just maybe the North Indian chart or something's using as a Bhava chart and not the Rashi chart, or a different calculation. But yeah, they're just a different drawing of the same thing. They should be the same.
And there's different things you can see more easily in different ones. So I particularly like South Indian chart for seeing Rashi aspects.
Yeah, that exactly. It's like for Rashi aspects, one is better, for planetary aspects, the other is better. And typically, like whatever you start out with, you just kind of visually get used to. So there's no like better or worse. Hi Sonia. She says she loves us all.
Hey, Sonia. I don't know how to answer that one.
Okay, the battery is running low, so we're gonna take one last question, then we're gonna go, and that's it. So if you have one last question, let us know. And yeah, that's it. So, please predict if Trump will win 2020 elections. Well, let's just get out a chart.
We'll predict that in 2019.
Wait, what's happening in 2020? We've got all those eclipses happening.
Oh yeah, I don't know if we want to talk about that.
It's gonna be an interesting.
It's gonna be an interesting.
Trump will have his hands full. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Nancy has an interesting question. What's the most appealing nakshatra for appearance? But I don't know. I don't necessarily relate appearance to nakshatras the way that other people do.
Oh, like the most attractive nakshatra. Yeah, that's not gonna. Yeah, that's not gonna have it. What'll
Rashi chart.
The simple basic way that'll create attraction is. One yoga is benefics in the fifth will make somebody attractive. One of the funny yogas that you wouldn't believe is Ketu and Saturn in Capricorn Lagna makes people stunningly beautiful. That's a yoga I've seen work. I've also seen that work in Aquarius. So Saturn and Ketu in Aquarius Lagna be extremely attractive. And then if you have Jupiter, Moon in your 7th, or even one of them in your 7th, you get a very attractive spouse. So those are some simple, quick yogas.
It's important to note that, you know, the Rashi charts the chart of the body, and the Nakshatras aren't always, you know, so it wouldn't be logical to look at the Rashi.
Yeah, you wouldn't use you wouldn't try to predict beauty off.
It's also subjective.
It is subjective, and
what we're attracted to.
You can go by symmetry.
And you can find like anyone to match what you think it's gonna look like. So it's not. I don't really think it relates, but maybe. And then the last question was, if you guys want to answer, how do you guys get into this? So we can. I guess if you all want to share a little bit about you, that'd be cool. Because
you know, one last quick thing on the beauty thing. The mistake you don't want to make, don't assume just because there's a benefic in the first house that the person's going to be attractive.
It's true. Look at me.
He has 2 malefics in the first house.
So now we understand.
But don't expect malefics in the first house to make a person unattractive. That's the interesting thing. You expect the first house is what's going to determine how attractive a person is. But benefics in the 5th have more weight for that than benefics in the first, actually.
Is that because, in general, attraction is a good karmic thing, and the 5th house is the house of good past life karma, or purva opinion, or whatever?
You know, I think part of it might be is that the 5th house has a lot to do with, you know, your expression, your self-expression, what's flowing through you. And so, you know, beauty's flowing through you, it makes you more attractive. So much of attraction is, you know, we don't think, oh, they have a great body, they got a great face, but really, a person can have a great body, great face, and if they express negativity through it, their face will look ugly and their posture will be ugly and they'll look gross. And another person, you know, so beauty really is about what you're expressing through yourself. And you really see this like working with clients sometimes. You're doing a reading and they come and they're just like shattered in hate and life. And you know, you look at them and you're like, oh gosh, this person's like scary looking or horrible looking, you know, because they're just so much in the death throes of the misery of their life. And you know, you do a good reading when you get done with the reading, they look very attractive because their whole self-expression in that hour and a half to 2 hour period has changed to where they went to this person who felt like horrible about themselves, horrible about life, to a person who's feeling like they can finally start expressing themselves again, and now they're a beautiful person.
So you're saying beauty's from within?
Well, no, beauty is from what flows through you.
Okay.
So the 5th house has so much to do with what's flowing through a person. And so you get nice planets there, you know, it'll change the person's self-expression, and that changes their posture, their facial expression. You know, any face can look ugly. If you've ever caught yourself on film in a really bad moment, you know, you might think you're like really good looking, and you'll see like, oh, I'm so gross looking. So everyone has looked gross because of what they're expressing at that moment.
Yeah, or it could be late at night.
Yeah, one of my best friends would always take random pictures of me, and I'd be like, please stop, I look terrible. And she would say, you know, the most beautiful faces can look the ugliest. Like things like that, which I don't know if that's true, but.
So was she saying you were
She was
ugly,
saying it was like a backhanded thing. I love her. Oops. So your computer just died, but we're still live. Well, the last question someone said, Nicole, you don't look at Nakshatras for appearance at all. Well, typically in readings, I'm not looking for people's appearance. So I don't even think about that. And also I haven't seen it correlating.
You know, for appearance, for like appearance, there's so much to that. How tall are you? Are you a blonde or brunette?
Well, what do you think is attractive? Like, it's
so
subjective. Like, people that I've dated, other people of my friends think, like, why would you ever date that guy? But to me, it's like the hottest guy in the whole world. So what do you, it's too subjective. It doesn't.
A lot of it's subjective, but
it's whether you're Rahu or your Ketu is on one of the personal planets, isn't it, right?
Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's true. And the thing is, we'll see different things in a person because of where their planets on our planets will really tune into certain energies of another person and not even maybe notice some of the other ones that someone else is like really allergic to, and so they find that person repulsive. Another person's tuning into completely different parts. And then again, when people come together, they create different, you know, expressions with each other. Two people come together and energy will rush through them. That is a beautiful expression of each of the people. So when they see each other, they see they're attractive. Another two people can come together, and when they see each other, what expresses through them is like a lot of fears, a lot of negative emotions, you know, who knows what, a lot of repulsion. So that person looks very unattractive to them. And so, you know, there is that part. And that, of course, is going to be experienced, especially when you meet someone in real life, you're in the same room together. When it comes to snapping a photo, that energy, of course, a lot of that's removed. And it's a static thing where this is the photo of a person and they're not in front of me and they're not responding to me and I'm not responding to them. So the photo, you can say, oh yeah, this is an attractive person. And people have general agreements. They say, oh, this is the most attractive man, the most attractive woman. But it's not always their bodies that are doing that. It's the consistency of a beautiful expression, really. And it's a hard thing to predict beauty. It's much easier actually to predict appearance. To me, when you say appearance, I hear how tall you are. Are you big boned? Are you slim boned? Are you blonde? Are you brunette? Are you light eyed, dark eyed? Are you tall? Are you stocky? You know, are you lean? Are you big? And that you need to focus on the ascendant. But for beauty, like I said, the fifth house is more important.
And do you think you can see appearance just from the nakshatras? Do you think that?
No, you can't. No, the appearance won't be shown by the nakshatras at all, because the appearance is your concrete body. How tall you are is a concrete thing. It has to do with the signs and your ascendant lord. And that you can do, you know, if you practice with it, you can predict how tall a person is going to be to half an inch.
Yeah, I've heard you say that. I think that's wild. All right. And then if we just want to spend a couple of minutes, you guys are sure how you got into astrology. I think you all have kind of interesting stories. So that'd be cool. Then people can get to know you a little better.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's, my mom was an astrologer, so I was raised around it, and it's always been part of my life. And, I did not want to be an astrologer.
That's so weird about you. That's so cool too. I love that, like, little bit of detachment.
When predictions started coming true, I really got very curious as to why they came true. I wanted to know what it was that made predictions happen. And so I decided to start studying it and see for myself. And it opened a door into some of the most amazing, interesting stuff that I've ever learned.
Yeah, and you guys should all try to find the interviews of Channing online because they're really brilliant. She has so much to say. So yeah, check them out because you're not everywhere online yet. So you have to like dig into Channing.
I know.
Yeah, but you're gonna love her interviews that she's already been. I'll try to have you on my channel so you can go to that if you want.
I don't know how to answer this question myself, so I don't know how I got into astrology. I was like a skateboarder and I always loved wisdom and knowledge and was always very philosophical, but I could have gone a lot of directions with that. So I never know how to answer this question. I didn't expect to be an astrologer either, but I did always expect, when I thought of myself later, that I thought I would have some knowledge or wisdom or something, but that's about it.
But not this.
When I like pictured the future. Yeah, I don't really, I don't. And it didn't seem like it was a thing that I was gonna do seriously, even when I was into spirituality too. And then I got into Kriya Yoga. I met Ryan in Asheville in 2007, and that kind of started a lot of things. And he did astrology, so maybe it's his fault.
His fault. Yeah. So yeah, because you have a connection with Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Corey has been on my channel before, and his YouTube channel is below. So check that out too. Ernst.
Well, I was doing martial arts at the time, and I was living in Milwaukee, and I was about to move away from there, and I was staying with a friend because I vacated my apartment, and my friend was an old hippie massage therapist, and he told me about, and the last day I was there, he goes, oh, you have to talk to my friend Nancy, she's a great astrologer, it'd be really exciting for you to get the chart read. So he just calls his friend up and says, hey, I got this kid here, you know, will you read his chart? She's like, sure. So she sits down, reads my chart for like 90 minutes over the phone. And back then, phone rates were like 30 cents a minute. And my friend was like, yeah, hippie's the key word here, which means he had no money. I had no money. And so after 90 minutes, he's like ripping the phone out of my hand because it was getting too expensive. But I was going to drive home the next day to Montana, and I was going to drive right through Minneapolis, where she lived. I was going to, and so she invited me. She goes, oh, why don't you just stop, do half the drive, 700 miles here, and then do the rest of the drive the next day. And, you know, you could spend the night. So I was like so excited. I was like, because my friend had said, oh, once she starts talking about your chart, she can talk to your chart for days.
Wow.
And the 90 minutes was so fantastic. I couldn't wait to get there. So like I drove there like 95 miles an hour, just heel to the steel all the way, right? And I get to her house, you know, I literally left at 6 a.m. and got there at noon. It was 700 miles. So you do the math, right?
Yeah.
I'm so excited, right?
A little dangerous.
Yeah, a little dangerous. But you know, when you're young, you're dangerous. So I get there and I'm so excited about hearing more about my chart. And first she cooks me lunch and she makes sure it was vegetarian. You know, she got the TV dinner out. And she's like, see, there's no meat in here. Oh, actually, there's little chicken broth. I'm like, don't sweat it. I can manage to stick it. I'm not getting vegetarian. I'm not going to make her go buy me a different TV dinner, right? So she was just like this American lady, which was an amazing astrologer. And then, so she feeds me lunch, and then she finally takes me back to her office to read my chart. But instead, what she does, she pulls out a feminist, she pulls out the table of houses, she pulls out some worksheets. She says, all right, this is how you calculate a chart. I'm like, why are you doing this? I don't want this. I want you to read my chart. So she taught me how to calculate the chart. A few hours go by. And then she fed me dinner, and she said, now it's time to go to bed because you're going to wake up early tomorrow, get back on the road. She wakes me up at 5 o'clock the next day, gives me my ephemeris, gives me my tables of houses, and shoos me out the door, right? And she gave me this little instruction book of her little course manual, this really basic cryptic thing that was extremely painful because every page needed like 2 hours of verbalization, But it didn't stop me from trying to read that on the way home, It was South Dakota, there was like no traffic. I was really safe, And so, anyway,
Don't do this at home.
yeah, don't do this, okay? The roads are much different than they were back then, okay? So then I got home and I tried to do my little sister, and it was like just like a miserable experience. I probably calculated her chart right, trying to verbalize anything, especially with just like keywords for planets and aspects. So I just stowed the books away for a little while. And a few months after my famous haircut, the last short haircut of my life, as a result of that haircut, probably, I was in a really hurting place and trying to figure out what went wrong with my life.
Oh, she dumped you?
Because your hair.
I don't know, it was because of haircut. I think I did my money or my lack of money. Anyway, so I called my mom and said, Mom, can you send me those books? And I was just so depressed, over, losing your first, quote unquote, what you thought was your love of your life type thing. And so I had my mom send me these books. And I calculated my chart, and I calculated her chart, and I went down to the bookstore, and I stood in the aisles for hours reading Stephen Arroyo books and whatever was on the shelf. After a really short time, I just processed this whole relationship, and I really saw how it all needed to happen the way it did, and I just got the peace with it, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And at the time, I was into like natural healing. I was, doing like, natural healing with athletes and massage with athletes and stuff. And I was really into healing. And when I was like that, I was like, who cares if your body's well? It's like when you're emotionally a train wreck, you need astrology. You don't need nutrition, So at that point, I just knew I was going to be an astrologer. And so then I really started devoting my life to studying it. Yeah. And it was really funny because in that year when I started studying it really strongly, I was working with athletes. I was at that year, they had the Olympic trials was in Minneapolis at the track there. And I was with the world champion who I was working for, and she was really into astrology. So I told her about it, so she wanted to go there. So we drove down to this astrologer, and she was very matter of fact. I told her she was studying. She goes, that's good. She wasn't like, I knew I had to teach you how to calculate that chart. It's just like this about it all, just so like no big deal.
Not mysterious.
Where, I thought I was really impressed that she taught me. Somehow she knew I needed to calculate a chart one day.
Wow.
And 6 months later, my life, not 6 months later, about a year later, my life is like hinging on being able to calculate a chart, So it was really cool. And she was just so humble about it. And just so like, it's no big deal. But she was really the best astrologer I met. I haven't met a Vedic astrologer as good as she was. She was phenomenal. And she had 40 years of experience reading charts.
Is she still around?
No, she's quite old at the time. She was pushing high 60s, and that was over 20 years ago. It was 26 years ago.
What's her name, or do you want to say?
Her name is Nancy. I don't recall her last name. His friend called her the Gnome. Because she was this gnomish little woman, old woman. But how she got into it, just to show the power of astrology, is she had, when she had her first son, she was like just bathing him like the first week, and she just passed out, and she just fell apart completely. And sometimes people after pregnancy, they fall apart and it's hard to live. It's actually it's not because they don't want to be moms, it's a certain kind of result they have because of their past life karmas, And so they have, and these type of people who are prone to this can also have really severe reactions to birth control pills. It's just their whole hormonal system will collapse after having a child. And this happened to her. And out of trying to heal all this, all these psychological things come out of it, because usually there's some heavy psychological karmas with that type of hormonal drop. And so she, I know I'm way off topic. It's sort of an interesting story. So please forgive me.
No, I think so.
So she went to counselors for months, psychologists for months and months. And, after 9 months made some progress. But then at 9 months, she went to go pick her son up from another lady who had a 9-month-old. So they get together and crawl around and, play 9-month-old toy games, I guess. So she went to pick up her son, and the lady was an astrologer. She said, "Oh, I'm an astrologer. Would you like, I can read your chart." So she's like, "Sure." And in 90 minutes, the woman helped her more than the psychologist had helped her heal in 9 months. And she was like, "Wow." And she was done. In that 90 minutes, her healing was done. And then she devoted herself to astrology, and she could predict, she could do psychology. To me, as astrologers should be able to predict, and they should be able to do psychology, and they should be able to heal. One thing I find really sad, and you can shoot me hate mail, but I'm gonna be a little critical here. What I find a lot in the Vedic astrology community is that there's a lot of very materialistic astrology going on. There's even this idea that the purpose of Vedic astrology is to predict the future. The truth is, Vedic astrology techniques are so psychologically sophisticated that if a person cared to even go there, it would blow their minds. And, the purpose of Vedic astrology is no more to predict than the purpose of Western astrology is to predict. They both have predictive techniques, and they both have, psychological techniques. But really, the truth is, there's much more psychological sophistication in Vedic astrology techniques for the person who wants to know them than there is in the Western world. The same way there's more predictive techniques. There's just more was preserved in India because there wasn't much book burning going on around in the 4th century there. But, an astrologer, having a prediction made doesn't really do a person a lot of good. Lots of times it's more traumatizing, and it just pushes their wound with no way they can overcome that wound. When people get wounded from astrologers, they go to astrologers. Astrologer says something like, "You have Kuja dosha."
Yeah.
And then maybe this person has an abandonment wound, and now they feel they have an abandonment wound, which means deep down inside they believe the person they love will abandon them. And then they're told that you're going to kill your spouse because you have Kuja dosha. And the Kuja dosha isn't even being calculated correctly in 99% of cases. You can't say anyone has Kuja dosha because it's always in balance to the other person. You only can have Kuja dosha relevant to someone else. You cannot just have Kuja dosha. Then it needs to be calculated in other Varga charts, not just not just the Rashi. So in India, there's all these poor ladies who are blemished with Kuja dosha, and a lot of them have abandonment wounds.
And they've been told,
and now they're told that their husband's going to abandon them because they're going to murder their husband. Yeah. They effectively kill their husbands. Yeah. And then just the level of prediction, just making a blanket prediction can really push a lot of wounds on people.
How many times have we had clients? I've had several clients who have come and told me that they heard from an astrologer that they're going to die.
Yeah,
or someone close to them is going to die.
And it's not done with any healing behind it.
No.
Sometimes you need to know so you're going to die and someone's going to die, but it should be packaged up in a way that, expands your life. But what happens with a lot of these blatant predictions that are going on, it's contracting people's lives. It's making their life seem like it has less possibility. It makes them feel like they have less potential for happiness. It's doing the opposite of what it should do.
And they obviously didn't die.
Yeah.
Now they're coming to talk to me.
Yeah.
So they're still alive.
And really, if you leave the astrologer and you don't feel like your life has more possibilities, you had a shitty astrologer.
Or they were prepared.
And I don't care how many predictions came true that astrologer told you. If you left feeling like your life is not expanded and that your potential is not greater, you had a bad read. And I'm not against predictions. Predictions are wonderful to do and they have their place, but I find so many people get their wounds really poked without any opportunity for healing when there's this attitude that, yeah, we're just here to show how we can predict, and we're here to predict your future. And yeah, you can change it with willpower. Yeah, right. That's, you know, you can change your future because your future doesn't matter when you heal. And if healing's not taken into consideration in reading, it can do a lot of damage. I get so many people who go to readers and get damaged. In fact, I don't have much time for readings. You know, because we've got 7 billion people out there on YouTube want readings. You know, how can you do it? You know, you can manage readings, and if you're a good astrologer, if you live in a town of 30,000 people, that's all the people you need to draw on to be as busy as you want. You know, you're dealing here with 7 billion people who have access, a lot of them have access to YouTube. You can't handle everyone. The people who I get preference from are usually people who've been really, you know, had a prediction or had a statement made about them that has really struck a wound and made them feel like they're less capable of living a happy life. And those are the people I usually spend more time with. And the other people will blow off, but those people get a lot of preference from my point of view. Yeah, because I feel like, shit, this really sucks if someone went and stuck their wound without any wisdom behind it.
And it's their karma to talk to you.
Yeah, I guess so.
Obviously, and heal that wound, hopefully.
So I appreciate you going into all of that. But I don't want to overshadow Ryan's story of how he got into astrology.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Forgot. So, but we can talk more about this. But I want to make sure that Ryan gets his time to shine.
You know, it's okay.
Yeah, how did you get into astrology, Ryan?
What was the question?
How did you get into astrology? I don't think, or I kind of know the story, but.
All right. Well, basically, I graduated from college and I got interested in meditation, particularly Kriya Yoga. Someone recommended the book Autobiography of a Yogi, and there's an astrologer in that book, Swami Shri Kishore. And I read the chapter on outwitting the stars. And after I read that chapter, I thought there might be something to astrology, although I didn't have any faith or belief in it. And the more I started reading books and the more I started seeing descriptions of how people were functioning and things that were going to happen and working out by looking at charts, just piqued my interest a little bit more. And so as the years went by, I studied Ayurveda, I got into massage therapy, and over time, more people were asking me to read their charts, and they were asking me to do craniosacral therapy or Ayurveda, and I just sort of kept going from there. So that was 17 years ago, and now that's what I do.
Cool.
That's just like
17 years now. Wonderful.
Jeez, that's like when I first started studying tarot. Wow. And if you guys are watching my channel, you probably already have heard my story, but I'll just try to like make it short because you know we're getting sleepy over here. But I was working this job 70 hours a week. It was just like this like thankless job. I was running an entire company but getting paid like nothing. I was very unhappy, but I was working from home. So what I ended up doing was I had my chart read when I lived in Montreal. And this, I loved the reading. It was amazing, but all of his predictions were wrong. But the things that he said about my chart were like really interesting. So I had that chart and had been studying it piece by piece for like years and slowly studying astrology for years. But finally I was like, okay, I'm going to look at my chart and I'm going to figure out what it is I should be doing just based off of this Western chart. So I was like, well, Neptune is on my 10th cusp and like all these different things. And I guess I'm revealing a little bit about my chart, but all these different things were really showing a career in spirituality. Like everything was showing a career in spirituality or something creative, and nothing was showing what I was doing. So I was like, well, maybe I should be studying, or maybe I should be doing something spiritual. So I kept studying my chart and kept studying my chart. And then I was realizing that I was watching astrology YouTube videos 7 hours a day and working 1 hour a day because I worked from home. So I felt really bad for like, I was getting my work done and like doing a good job with the company I was working for, but I really felt bad that I was just studying astrology all the time. And then one day, when Uranus conjuncted my ascendant, like exactly, I was just kind of like, I had this thought again, like, what should I be doing for my career? And then I asked myself, well, what is the thing that you spend all your time doing that you love doing? And I was like, well, I spend 14 hours a day studying astrology. I checked out every single book from the library on astrology and I read all of them. Maybe it's astrology. And so I put in my 2 weeks notice. They were really mad at me, so they fired me instead. I negotiated like a severance and I had no money. All I did was study astrology and I had no backup plan. And then like slowly, like over time, like just started my business. So I don't know. It was just like, it wasn't like I was like, oh, I want to be an astrologer, because people would say, you should study astrology, you should do astrology. And I would say, I would never study astrology. That's so intense, and I could read tarot cards. And that was always like my final verdict on it. But what happened was I was reading the Western chart to figure out my career. And I kept on stumbling upon Vedic astrology websites. And I got really confused when I saw this other chart after I had been looking at this like website for like, and I think it was actually Kapil's channel, interestingly enough. I saw him like show the chart that he uses, and I was like, that doesn't look like the chart I'm reading. And I got really confused, and it was like one of those crazy moments in my life where I thought like, am I on a different planet? There's another astrology that exists. And at that moment, like I did not stop studying Vedic astrology. Like I forgot about Western, like whatever I could absorb about Vedic astrology. It was like I didn't sleep for months, and but I didn't want to be an astrologer because I was like, I don't want to study for 10 years. I don't want to do this. I want to just make music and all this. But it like took me in, and now I just can't even imagine. I can't imagine like not doing astrology, you know? So yeah, I worked a lot of jobs. I've had a lot of terrible jobs. I've been everything from, I used to like clean toilets. I was a wedding DJ. Like I had terrible jobs, and I feel like this is the one place where it feels like the right place, you know? That's my story. Yeah, maybe not as fascinating or mystical.
It does kind of suck you.
Well,
I
I was
think it's
basically
important
like, my story, so you know, compared to y'all, I think I was the most.
That you were reading cards when you started playing with cards at a young age.
Yeah, I started reading tarot, so I always had that, and I always knew, and I was just like Corey, where I said, this was my like 30-year plan. I was going to be a musician for 10 years. I was going to be a filmmaker for 10 years. And then I was going to write books and be a spiritual lady for 10 years. Like that was like my career plan. And I was like, when I'm in my 40s and 50s, I'm going to be this spiritual woman. And I'm going to like, I didn't see astrology, but I was like, I'm going to be a spiritual woman writing books. Like that was my thing. So I was like, why is this happening to me now? I'm supposed to be a musician now. And I really fought it because I was like, I want to work on my album, but then I would just be like in this book, and I couldn't stop, you know?
Yeah, it just goes to show you need to learn what's in that book more than you need to make noise.
Yeah, but I'm still going to make noise.
It's what you need for your development. You need to understand those things that you've been learning, and it's what's going to move you upward and onward.
Yeah, and I feel like when you're doing what you're meant to be doing, you feel more at peace with life.
Definitely.
And like my life maybe was more exciting when I was a musician, but I feel like when you have a lot of needs, life is exciting because you're going after those needs. But when you're at peace, you really don't have like that appetite or hunger for like crazy stuff. I don't know.
Definitely.
So anyways, any last words that you guys want to say? Any crazy thing?
No, nothing crazy.
No, enough crazy stuff said.
Yeah, so thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, subscribe. Please subscribe to all of their channels, and I'm sure you'll be seeing them around soon. And thank you. Thanks for asking your questions. I can't
sorry we couldn't get to all of them.
Yeah, I can't turn off the live feed from here, so we're gonna be awkward, and
okay,
I'm gonna have Ryan grab this for me. So they're still on there. You guys can see me up close and personal. And I'm just gonna stop this. So I'll see you guys in the next video. I'll see you on Tuesday or maybe before. And if you go to Instagram, if you go to @listentothestars_, I'm doing some like photos and videos of this weekend while I'm here in Arizona. So if you want to like have more of this, then just go there. But I'll see you guys later. Bye.